John Lennon was a guy who was somewhat fascinated with the extremes of violence and peace in society, as well as with death itself, with his numerous references to Hitler and Christ, the Nazis and the Buddhists, the assassination of the Kennedys and Martin Luther King, comments he made about his mother and Epstein's death, and if someone had told him he too would be shot, he would not have been surprised by that. The Beatles all said that there were times that they genuinely feared for their lives, and Lennon knew that he was both the most beloved and most hated of the four. There's no question that that knowledge and his own semi-morbid fascinations found their way into his songwriting. In 1965, when the Beatles were riding a colossal wave of fame, John Lennon told a reporter, "I'd probably be popped off by some loony, and how he have a great fear of being shot." He also was quite paranoid during the time previous to his death and complained about the lock on his door at the Dakota being unsafe and such, and how someone could easily break in. There's been many other instances where he's mentioned prophetic things. He also said he did not want to die at 40, and in his last interview he mentioned wanting to live for a really long time. He said, "Where there's life, there's hope." The Philip Norman book includes this anecdote about John's friend, Sonny Freeman, telling a story about when she first met him as the band was moving to London. She said, "I remember John saying he didn't think he was going to live very long, and that he had a premonition that he'd be shot too." Lennon was also quoted as saying that it's strange that all the great peacemakers die violently at the time that he was becoming known as one of the great peacemakers. John did say in at least one interview that people who advocate peace and civil rights, like Gandhi and King, always get shot, and he would not want to be shot. Furthermore, after John made his Jesus remark, the Beatles did receive threats, their records were burned, there were loud protests and hate fests in the American South. There were demonstrations by the KKK. In the Beatles anthology movie, there is mention that the Beatles were on tour in the US and someone exploded a firecracker on or near the stage, which startled the Beatles, and Ringo, Paul and George all instinctively looked at John immediately to see if he was okay. In a rare Lennon interview, he was asked about the fuss over his Jesus remark, and he stated that he was frightened by the whole incident. In the unreleased Watching Rainbows from the Get Back sessions, Lennon is clearly singing "Shot Me" as a repeating chorus. The song itself never went anywhere, but John Lennon must have liked the idea because he brought that phrase into the next Abbey Road sessions on "Come Together," discreetly woven into Ringo's drum hit that opens up the song and repeated throughout. Lennon is singing this strange phrase that foretells his own horrible end 11 years later. In "Happiness is a Warm Gun," he mockingly celebrates the love of a gun owner for shooting something or someone to death as a doo-wop song. And in the Ballad of John and Yoko, he sang "They're Gonna Crucify Me," anticipating the day the media and his public would eventually consume him literally in a violent death. In the song "I'm Scared" from his album Walls and Bridges, he sings, "Hatred and jealousy, gonna be the death of me. I guess I knew it right from the start." Sadly, he was right. Also in his unreleased "Help Me to Help Myself," Lennon sings, "I tried so hard to stay alive, but the angel of destruction keeps on hounding me all around." And in his posthumous record, Milk and Honey, he tells us he is living on borrowed time. And one other side not yet mentioned is that when he was killed, he was holding the rough mixes of Yoko's song "Walking on Thin Ice," on which he played guitar, a phrase we all know to mean one is courting disaster. In a 2010 Rolling Stone interview, Yoko says that right before John died, he started listening to "Walking on a Thin Ice" over and over again, as if in a trance. "I may cry someday, but the tears will dry whichever way, and when our hearts return to ashes, it'll be just a story." She says, "I hadn't realized that it said, I may cry someday, not you may cry someday, or we may cry someday. What was I thinking?" John probably noticed it as he was listening to the song that weekend so intently. Was that what made him keep on listening? Did we know something? John, me? Death was one thing we didn't discuss that weekend, but it was around us like a thick fog. There are also mentions of two psychics Yoko had on a payroll that told her dark, non-explicit, but quite telling, in retrospect, prophecies the week before John's death. John was very aware of his fame and status as a celebrity pop icon and happened to say a combination of words that look now as though he predicted what would happen. Regardless, it was tragic and senseless and such a horrible thing to happen to someone with so much potential and so much to give to the world. John was a man with faults and shortcomings, just like any other, but he managed to contribute more in this relatively short time on this earth than so many others, and while he would hate to be canonized for it, it makes him remarkable nonetheless.
Hello.
That was Ringo, folks.
Well, what can I say?
And goodbye from all of us.
Well, this is Ringo. Everyone seems to have said everything here, so I'll just sign off by saying cheerio and best of luck from the Beatles.